Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Evan Greenhill.
I'm Zach McClure.
And I'm Alex Huddleston.
And today on our podcast, we're actually going to be talking about the merits of voice acting and live acting and doing kind of a comparison between the two and sort of a look into it. So let's start off. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this at least has some idea of what acting is, but what are the main differences between voice acting and live acting?
Well, of course, the biggest absolute defining difference of them is voice acting is done in one location in a recording booth or recording area, while live acting can be done anywhere. Live acting can be done in a recording booth if you wanted to.
Let me go ahead.
I would say, in my opinion, the biggest difference is in expectation. Because when people think of voice acting, in the rare occasions they do, they think, oh, that's got to be simple. You just sit in a booth and you say something. Whereas acting has almost a prestige associated with it, because you're not just saying stuff, you're doing stuff too. And so people tend to think that acting is more, or that live acting is more than that, People don't treat voice act, at least over here, they don't treat voice actors in the same way they treat live actors.
Okay, well, let me pose a hypothetical in that case. There's a stage play going on, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the roles in the stage play is the role of a narrator who's never seen on stage anything of that nature, but he does provide his action live behind the stage through a microphone. Would you consider that live acting or voice acting?
That's voice acting.
I would consider that voice acting.
Okay.
Well, and that's simply because, like he said, there's the expectation of he's not actually there, he's not doing the actions. As far as we know, he's not doing the actions, and he's simply.
Sorry.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say it would probably lead to a lot of issues down the line, but theoretically, you could record that ahead of time and play it during the performance, and nobody would be the wiser.
Absolutely, and to go along with that, with the expectation, there is kind of a belief that voice acting is easier, that live acting you have to learn the blocking and dialogue, and you have to put the emotional effort to actually put on a good role, stuff like that. Whereas with voice acting, you could just go in, speak. If it's not good the first time, you just speak again until you get the way you like, and then you leave.
Although for those of us who have been on film shoots, we know that live acting is the same way. You go out there and you do it. The director's like, nope, your foot was too far to the left. Strike the set. Do it again.
Set everything back up.
I feel like we should clarify this, because we're saying there's voice acting and live acting, but when we say live acting, we're not just talking about like theater and stuff.
Of course not. Any kind of physical acting where you are present to the audience in a physical way or a
so even if it's
way.
recorded ahead of time, even if you're doing it on a green screen, that still counts for our purposes. What we're talking about is live acting.
I suppose it would be easier to call it physical acting.
I think we might want to make that distinction. I think that would be easier for our audience.
Yeah. So we'll just have like a little marker that says like physical acting. Marked over live acting.
Strike through.
In-session editing, yes. All right. So obviously we've all had some experience in the aspects of that. So which ones do you personally prefer? Which one would you personally prefer over the other?
Voice acting.
Why?
Well, first off, for anyone who's seen me, I'm a very portly individual, and that's the very nice way of saying I'm a fat ass. So physical acting is both tiring for me, and I don't get very many roles because, well, the only real thing I can apply for is comedy roles, because you don't really expect a serious role out of a 300-pound individual. So, but with voice acting, I could really be anybody. I could be kind of any character I want as long as my voice fits.
Yeah. Personally, I'm kind of split between it. I mean, I started off my career all on the vocals, the voice, the audio side of things. But lately, as I've been doing more with the visual side of things, I'm kind of torn between the two. On the one hand, audio is my first love, and that's what I'll always prefer to do. But on the other hand, I'm just so handsome, I feel bad depriving the world of being able to see my face on the screen, you
Oh,
know?
of course, you know, the world would feel bad about it too, being that deprived.
Exactly. Every time someone doesn't see my face, an angel loses its wings.
Aw.
Those angels didn't mean to have wings in the first place.
Luckily, there's a ton of angels up there, but I mean, their numbers are thinning. This is a
What about
serious issue.
what about you, Evan?
Well, personally, I think I prefer physical acting to just voice acting. I love voice acting. It is marginally easier, I think, to do in terms of, comfort zones and preparation wise, at least for the actor. There's text set up and everything, and
Right.
all that wizard magic that they do behind the set that I don't understand. But I think physical acting, you get more of an opportunity to stretch what you're able to do. And you obviously typically, because in voice acting, typically, you're not usually like with the people that you're interacting with. Like, just you're all together in a room, just like,
Right.
bouncing your lines off of each other. So there's that kind of that chemistry is, I think, sometimes lost. And when you're doing live acting, you're there in the room with them. You're playing off of the energy between, the two of you. And I
Right.
think you get to be a bit more dynamic with it. So I would prefer live acting to voice acting, but they're both, very fun.
On the other hand, a large amount of actors out there are complete assholes, and not having to deal with them is definitely a plus in some situations.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and with voice acting, there is like the separation, because you can only go so far with it with your voice, because like you could do like a really emotional scene, but if you cry, that's not really gonna come across
Yeah.
very well.
Well, it's hard to feel in the moment when you're not like, surrounded by the entire morgue and all the people at the wake just crying, and
Yeah,
you have to put yourself in that moment.
Well,
in the
I don't really know, because I mean, on the one hand, yes, if you're doing a physical acting thing, there is that set there, and there's the casket and everything. But when you look out beyond that set, you see the warehouse and the rafters and the cameraman and the staff table and the two the two
Blinding
extras
lights.
chatting at the side and stuff like that. There's still that huge disconnect.
yeah,
And-
and what I was gonna say is with that, with like an emotional scene or something, there is the silence disconnect, because a lot of emotion, especially in films and TV, are done through nonverbal like communication, because a
Yeah.
very sad scene will sometimes be done in complete silence with like a music voiceover, and it's all the visual aspect.
The thing is, though, when you're doing voice acting, you just have to hope and believe that the people who are in charge of that aspect of it are going to do it right. That's not your concern at all.
Yes.
Your concern is only to make sure that your vocals do the job you need them to do. You personally may not be able to get across as much as someone who is doing a physical acting performance, but that's not your concern, is what it is.
Yeah.
Your only concern is getting across what you can do, making sure that your voice as perfectly fits the situation as you can, and hoping that the animators don't completely fuck it up.
Yeah, and that's a big thing.
All right.
But what I was trying to say is, with voice acting, the disconnect sometimes come from, you want to have that personal connection with the product. Like with live acting, when you do an emotional scene, you hope your performance really enhances the product.
Right.
Whereas an actor, you want to feel that same connection with the product, but to some degrees, you're putting your involvement out of the final product. Because once you're done with the action, once you're done with the voice acting, they can kind of do with your voice whatever they want. They could change the role for all you know.
I don't know. On the one hand, that kind of seems a little bit, I don't want to say unlikely, but having worked hands-on in some of those situations, I know how balls hard it is to take one thing and turn it into another. I mean, everybody always says, oh, we can fix that in post. We can fix that in post. It's really hard to fix stuff in post.
Yeah, but
I mean,
but even
if someone gives you a masterful, eloquent, amazingly deep and stirring performance, you're going to have a hell of a time coming back and saying, you know what? No, we want that to be a comedy, taking what they gave you and making it funny. I mean, there's only a limit to so much you can do with the programs. when you get in that booth and you give your performances, unless you just completely forgot about what you've done, for the most part, you should have a pretty good idea of how your character is going to be treated. Unless they just completely cut the voices, make your character a mute, and then drive them off a cliff or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I was, of course, talking in extremes because
Right, right.
But one thing I will actually say now that you've said that is, well, they can't like completely like delete your entire voice and make you mute because that'd be well, they can technically do that, but and they still have to give you a paycheck. But
Yeah.
but to that end, what they could do is if you give a really good performance, they could just cut that entire like thing out.
Yeah.
But of course, that's also in live acting. That goes to editing, and
True.
editing is a completely different subject.
Yeah, it's entirely. That's a whole other baseball game.
Yeah. Oh man, that's woof.
Okay, so what do you think? Like what do you think makes good live acting, or what do you think goes into or is required to really put forth good live acting?
There's a lot of things that you could say goes.
You need moxie, kid.
That could go into the performance, and a lot of that could be beyond the actor. Things like good lighting, good set, stuff like that. But it comes down to having a good actor, a good person who can convey the exact thing that you want to convey in whatever you're making.
And spunk.
Spunk.
Gotta have spunk.
Oh, you have to have enthusiasm.
You have.
I mean, it's funny because one of the things that I find like is kind of a weird, like highly regarded thing in the acting industry is the idea of method acting.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you guys know what that is? I think it's a cool technique, and I think it really helps a lot of people.
Well, let's go ahead and elucidate in case one of our listeners doesn't.
Right on. Well, method acting is sort of the situation you've probably heard with some famous actors where they basically completely immerse themselves in the role, even when they're not on camera. They'll live how their character does. They'll go to the places that their character will. They'll speak like it, act like it, basically become their character for the entirety of when the production is going on.
Right, or sometimes even before that.
Yeah.
Like when they were filming Taxi. You heard about that, right?
Yeah, Robert De Niro, like, he actually became like a cab driver and did that whole thing for like months before.
Yeah, like
the
6
shooting
months.
Started. Yeah,
before the production started.
And I think that's a neat thing in acting, but I think it's kind of it's at least it seems to me like it's become unjustly kind of regarded as like the pinnacle of acting techniques now.
Right.
And it just seems kind of like people are heralding this technique, which is weird because it just seems like more traditional methods of getting into character are taking a back seat to it.
I was going to say, like, I think a lot of method acting, especially back in the old days, came from the fact that to a point you could only research so much.
Yeah.
Because all you had, especially if you're doing a historical character, was libraries. Libraries and like first-hand accounts if the person was recent, which helped stuff like the Goodfellas and Godfather and stuff like that. But to a point, you're only going so far with research, and sometimes it helped know about the character if you kind of lived how they lived, and then you could kind of figure out more about them through that. Nowadays, you can basically research character all you want. You can kind of get in the mindset without having to live their life. Which helps.
This may make me sound like an asshole. I don't know. Personally, I don't want to say. I'm trying to think of a word less harsh than this, but I'm just going to come around and say it. I think method acting might be a bit of a crutch. In that, as an actor, in order to be the best actor ever, shouldn't you be able to take a look at something and then step into that person's shoes? Isn't that the pinnacle of what you should strive for as a performer? I'm asking. It's the question.
Well, I mean, that goes back to what I was saying about it, because I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with method acting, but one of the biggest things that I think is wrong with how highly it's become regarded is that it's not really acting. Anybody can change their life and become somebody else.
Exactly.
Acting is about slipping on a persona for something, for a purpose other than just, oh, I'm going to be this for a while.
Right. And I don't mean to sound like oh, I'm so good I don't need to. I'm probably a terrible actor, and if I ever got a really big part, I would do method acting. I would do that just because I'm
Yeah.
not good enough to simply step into every role there is available. There might be a few where I would be able to just pick it up and knock it out of the park, but the vast majority of stuff I wouldn't be able to. But when people hold up method acting as the pinnacle, it seems like they're losing sight of what you should strive for beyond that.
Yeah.
Which is to be at the point where you don't need to have that method acting.
And what I will say with method acting is I'm not a big fan of it either, but I do see one of the main positives for it. If you're trying to make something that's really big, that really has that really either realistic feel or that really heavy emotional tonal feel, method acting is good simply for the subtlety. A role, sometimes the subtle things that you do in a role can really bring out what you're doing with the character, and sometimes you can really only get that when you feel like you are the character.
I get that.
So things
Yeah.
like the way you walk, what you do with your hands when you're not actually a main part of the scene, stuff like that, can really help when you know the character, not just when you are stepping into the role of
Yeah.
the character.
Yeah.
When you've lived in that
Well,
skin for a little while.
I think we're talking about two slightly different things here. I'm not decrying research at all.
Neither am
You
I.
should strive
Oh,
to
definitely.
know as much about the character as possible. I'm talking about the actual physical act of, for 6 months, trying to do everything exactly as that character would, so that way when you step onto the set, you feel like you know them on some deeper level. And again, I'm not downplaying that or anything. I'm just saying it feels like that shouldn't be the pinnacle of what you should strive for.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really talk about it, but I think there is like a very nice middle ground, which a lot of people do. Which is like, you spend a few weeks kind of understanding the character, researching them, but also kind of seeing what they felt like. Which is good. Like, you should definitely understand what you're doing before you go into it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you'll definitely want to try on their personality, but you don't want to make that how you interact with literally every person that you meet.
Yeah, I don't like method acting too much because of the dangers it can entail. Because, well, when you play like a drug addict, when you become a method actor for that, well,
Yeah, wasn't there a famous story about someone like that? I might have to
I
Google
think
this.
so. Yeah.
well, there's Heath Ledger. Who,
Heath Ledger, that was running around for a lot, but I think that was mostly just people trying to read deeper into it than it was. But I think there was like a legitimate, like, actual case of something like that.
Yeah.
we'll have to read into it later after this
Yeah.
podcast.
All right. So in the same vein, what do you think is really required to be really successful at voice acting?
The same thing, but in a different way.
I agree. No.
What I mean by that, I actually do mean that. What I mean by that is that you have to have the same kind of emotional wanting to be the character, but, and I don't want to say it's easier, but sometimes it's simpler because now you just have to be able to now you don't have to like copy their mannerisms or anything to a point, but you still have to learn like their vocal things, and most of the time with an animation or something that you'll be doing voice acting for, it's a completely new character. It's someone that's never been made before, or someone that's never been thought of up until that moment, and now you're just kind of playing this character that you that you can't really do research on. Now you just have to be them.
Well, personally, I feel like there's two real paths to voice acting, and that one is just straight emulation. Like impersonation.
Yeah.
This is where you simply seek to make your voice and everything about it sound like the person. So if you were doing like a remake of The Godfather or something, you would try to make your voice sound exactly like, or an animated remake or something. Yeah. On the other hand, I feel there's also the school of thought, which is not that you should try and sound like somebody, but more you should try and sound like the character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that you should try and make your voice sound exactly like somebody, like whoever this character was based on, but more you should try to have the vocal inflections and patterns and pitch and tone that you feel this character calls for.
Capturing the essence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And with that, there are just kind of going back. there is, of course, famous characters that have been both in live action and like animation video games in multiple genres. Most famous, of course, being Joker,
Right.
who has the famous voice of Heath Ledger, but instead of having him instead of in later adaptations just having him be a copy of Heath Ledger, who probably is one of the top three like most famous Jokers right now.
Yeah. Although I think you may be talking about Mark Hamill right now.
Yeah.
Heath Ledger's
No,
fairly
no.
recent.
Let me continue
Okay,
my thought.
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm saying is instead of trying to copy him, the different adaptations will always kind of, instead of trying to just copy the popular one at the time, which some did, but instead they decided to match the character to the voice. So instead of copying the live action version, which is kind of what he was talking about, they instead went with what would fit Joker more as a character, which would be guys like Mark Hamill, but also guys like John DiMaggio, who played Joker once.
Or what was Kevin Michael Richardson?
Yes.
I think. Yeah, did him. And did a completely different version than I'd ever heard, and it really worked really well. It was deep and bassy and gravelly.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And with voice actors, there is a different category, too. There are live-action actors, kind of character actors, who can do many, many different roles. But I feel that's more prominent in voice acting because instead of just a large group of actors who can do different roles when they need, in voice acting there are a group of actors who can do a ton of different roles.
Well, I was actually
because they're not limited by the way they look.
Yes,
exactly. And I was actually going to talk about that as because I actually believe that even if you're like a successful film actor, there are prerequisites that you have to meet and you may not meet to be a successful voice actor. And this is there's a story, or there's a story that I tell some people when I talk about this, that there's not mentioning any names, but there's a show out right now. It's an animation show. It's a good show. The guy who makes it actually plays one of the voices on it, of actually one of the main characters. I had never seen the guy or heard anything about him. I had no idea what he looked like, what he sounded like, anything before I watched one of the episodes. But the moment that I heard his voice, I knew that that was the director, and it was actually because he was a writer first and kind of an actor second, and you could hear in his voice that he wasn't really fully invested into the idea of the acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is there's an important aspect that people talk about a lot in voice acting of you need to have a unique voice. You don't necessarily need to have like a voice that's recognizable at an instant, but you need to have a voice that has character. And this is why you can't really have somebody like Michael Cera
Right.
play a voice, because his voice is really, you know, it's common and it's not distinct.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it is very common, and he has a very particular voice. I don't want to talk bad about Michael Cera. I don't think he might have the biggest range, but I think at this point he's been in enough roles, enough people would recognize his voice to the point where he might be able to get some voice acting roles on the strength of his popularity.
The thing with Michael Cera is his first major role was voice acting.
Right.
Really? What was he?
His first role was the younger brother in Braceface, which is a show I will say I watched. I will not say I enjoyed it. I will not say I watched it regularly. It's a show I've watched in the past.
Interesting. And a lot of, especially in new animated feature films, which are a very big thing right now, you'll see a lot of big name actors getting roles, even if they don't really have a distinct voice because they're famous. But I think that kind of detracts from it.
Yeah, but I was
go ahead.
I was going to say earlier when you were talking about the predefined the look with a lot of different actors, that is very true, and that's another reason I enjoy, like I said at the beginning, it's another reason I enjoy voice acting so much, because I can really play anybody I want. And I was going to actually say that, well, in live acting, you can only play the roles that you're kind of designed for, unless your name's Johnny Depp, where you can play an Indian. which I still don't understand. But I'm just going to let that pass for now.
Well, I mean, like he's kind of the opposite of that, because Johnny Depp has proven sort of that he's a versatile guy, but it's not so much the fact that he's versatile so much as people allow him to be versatile. People allow him to do pretty much anything.
He only, and like, I'm not even like shitting on Johnny Depp. I like him a lot. But I will say that he only plays like 4 characters. Like when he's playing Tonto in the latest Lone Ranger movie, and he's basically playing non-drunk Jack Sparrow.
Very serious and controlled. Yeah, and that seems to be kind of a common theme.
Oh, and the thing I always
work.
And the thing I will always complain about with Johnny Depp is his goddamn British accent, because he never changes it. It's always the exact same thing.
I'm not going to hate on him for that.
Well, I mean, like, he's shown he could do different ones. He just does the same one because he can.
You do what you're comfortable with. You just want to make sure you can do it.
He does the same one because whoever casts him wants that voice.
That's also another one.
I mean, when you get to the point where he is in the industry, you do have some sway, but I think a lot of people don't realize just how much control other people have over you when you participate in something like this.
And I am very aware of that. It still annoys the heck out of me.
Oh yeah, no.
I just think that goes back to comfort zones.
Yeah, I need to apologize really quick to Michael Cera, because looking at his IMDb page, he has actually done a surprising number of voice-acted roles.
Yeah.
He's quite an accomplished voice actor. I did not know that. That is my bad.
He even did the voice acting for Scott Pilgrim in an animated short that they did for it, and he was better as the voice of Scott Pilgrim than he was as the actual Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah. And that's the aspect, is that even if you don't have that distinct voice, you can still do it in the voice acting community, and you can still, make good work by what you do. But when you look at somebody like Patrick Warburton, Patrick Warburton has a very distinct voice. You know it the minute you hear it. And it's a voice acting director's dream come true to have a voice like that.
Yeah.
Because you know automatically what you want to put it with.
And to remind people, Patrick Warburton currently is what's his name from Family Guy?
He's Joe Swanson on Family Guy. He played Brock Sampson on the Venture Brothers. He was on Will and Grace for a while. He was in the live action of The Tick, which there needs to be more of.
Oh, there's so
he's known for his incredibly big voice, which it is only obvious because that dude is like a mountain. If Mount Olympus had legs, it would be Patrick Warburton.
And what I will say, along with the physical body aspect of it, a fantastic actor to use for this example will always be Phil LaMarr. Because Phil LaMarr is a slightly older black actor now. He was on Mad TV for a while. He appeared in Pulp Fiction, and he's a black actor. And when he's doing live action, he kind of plays a similar set of characters. But in voice acting, he's played such characters as Samurai Jack, and Vamp from Metal Gear Solid.
Well, I mean, I can guarantee if anyone listening to this podcast is under the age of 28, they've heard Phil LaMarr.
Yes.
Not just once, but probably about 5 different times.
You've heard him so often, you might not even recognize. You know what I'm saying? It becomes background noise. It's
you're
one of those
talking
things.
About the guy who can do that deep, bassy Vamp voice, and then go and on Mad TV and do these perfect Michael Jackson impressions. Just
it's incredible.
It's amazing.
His range
how versatile he is.
Oh. Yeah. Anyways,
that's enough. Yeah, that's enough fluffing of Phil LaMarr.
But so there's a lot. I think there's actually a lot that goes into making good voice acting versus making good live acting. Because as long as you're a good actor, you can do physical acting, and I think do very well. And voice acting is an entirely different animal, because not only are you having to basically create this entire world around you as you're doing it, you have to interact with people that A, aren't there at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And B, you have to realize that you're not able to physically represent the character.
Exactly.
That doesn't happen, as it may in physical acting, where you can get away with the fact that you may have a funny voice because literally you are physically representing the character, so it should match up anyway.
Yep.
Unless you happen to be like a mountain and you have a very high teeny voice, which would be hilarious anyway. Somebody will hire you for something.
Or if you
Yeah.
or if you're like Daniel Bedingfield.
Yes, exactly. But in voice acting, you have to be very careful, and I see this a lot with really bad dubs.
Oh yeah.
People, they do something, I hate it. It's I think one of the worst examples of voice acting or acting in general that you see with a lot of people who want to be actors but who aren't good with it. They do what is called putting on a voice,
Mhm.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
which means you're not speaking like I could talk with a British accent, and it would be, as long as I'm being a British person, it's fine. But if I'm going out of my way to be a British person, then it sounds fake, and you can tell that I'm acting.
Oh, and basically what he's trying to say is it's the idea that you are not trying to be a character. You're trying to act like a character.
Exactly.
You're trying to, instead of saying like, hi, my name's Jack. How's it going, man? How's it going? And going, hey, my name's Jack, and I want to see how you're doing right now.
Yeah, and it ruins so many good opportunities, I think, and I think it's a lot more prominent in voice acting than it is in physical acting.
It's
And,
the difference between being a person who was born in Lancashire and being a British person.
Exactly.
Yeah, and actually there was a good radio equivalent of that, which with a lot of people when you first go into radio announcing and radio broadcasting, they teach you the difference between being a radio presenter and being a puker.
Yeah.
Which Alex, if you could show us an example of both of them.
Oh man. Okay. Well, let's say I want to announce a new concert on my radio station. So I'm like, hey, this is 98.5 The Bone. We're here to talk about coming up this weekend. We've got a great concert for you guys. We're going to be giving away free tickets. Or it's going on and say, hey, this is 98.5 The Bone. We've got a great, great, great concert this weekend, and we're giving 3 lucky people free tickets.
And there's a huge difference between that. One of those voices is a lot more relatable and a lot more likable than the other.
It sounds like a person
Yes.
rather than a crazy man with a machete.
And
And on that, I think we're going to go ahead and take a break,
alrighty.
and we will see you guys.
We'll be right back in just a few.
Yeah!
Yeah.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I am talking with Alex Huddleston and Zach McClure about live action versus voice action.
Well, it's
And,
great.
gentlemen.
It's great to be here.
Yes,
How
it
are
is.
you tonight?
So our next question is, what would you personally feel is the best example of voice acting, and what would you feel is probably the best example that you've seen or your favorite of live acting?
Voice acting, well, you honestly have to go into anything by Pixar because they have probably one of the best voice production teams of all time.
Oh, definitely.
And they really know how to just get the scene. Like, you forget that sometimes the people you're hearing are really, really big name actors, and you just think of them as like, I'm watching Buzz Lightyear talk to Woody instead of I'm watching Tim Allen talk to Tom Hanks.
Dude, that threw me the first time I even realized it. It was the last thing I ever expected to associate with Tim Allen or Tom Hanks was Toy Story, and you grow up and you realize that, and you're like, wow, they're good at their job.
And sometimes, like, even people that you like hate, like people that you think are terrible people or bad actors, sometimes Disney can get really good performances out of them, and it shocks you because, like, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but another voice acting thing I will give credit to is a guy who you can, by the way, quick plug here, you can go and watch the interview on this very channel. David Hayter as Solid Snake.
Voice of Solid Snake.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And the thing is, like, anybody who's listened to or who's played through Metal Gear Solid will probably admit that it's probably not the most solid script.
Well, it is a video
Utter
game
bastard.
script, so
you bastard.
But the way that he delivers the character, the way that he does Solid Snake, really like connects you with him because around like Metal Gear Solid 4, you can tell this is a guy who's beaten up, who's been doing this for a very long time and just cannot quit. And that's what you love about him. And just first off, the huskiness of the voice just makes you fall in love with him in the first place. But also just
actually hear David Hayter talk in his normal speech, and I mean, he sounds like any of us. I mean, he's just a normal guy. And then he goes into it, and he gets as gravelly as possible.
Yeah.
And then just goes home with it.
Yeah. So those would be some examples of a voice acting I like. Live acting, of course, you have to go with whenever Gene Wilder does a role.
Oh my God, yes.
Willy Wonka, the Waco kid.
Yes, from Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
Yeah.
My favorite line from him, of course, is "Look at this hand here, straight as a
Steady as a
board."
rock. Yeah, but I shoot with this one.
Just the way he delivers that line is fantastic, and whatever role he's given. Oh, especially as Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh yeah,
he takes that role.
Frederick
Frankenstein. He just takes that role and runs with it. So
it's Frederick Frankenstein.
Frederick Frankenstein.
Okay, I'm going to say something. I had to pause for a second to look this up to make sure because I didn't want to say something that was wrong. I'm about to blow both of your minds.
Okay.
Probably not.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Pixar doesn't do their own sound. Pixar's sound is handled by the same people who do DreamWorks sound. Skywalker sound.
Skywalker.
That's not surprising.
They're dead serious. Yep.
Yeah, Skywalker Ranch. They're still really good.
Mm-hmm. Skywalker Sound handles so much. I mean, they've won 18 Academy Awards for best sound and best sound effects. They are the professionals.
They should just call it the Skywalker Award.
Just give it to them every year, even if they don't do anything.
That being said, personally, my favorite voice acting thing, my brain's not working right now, definitely got to be Archer.
Archer does really well with it.
Archer is incredible.
One of the things I love about Adam Reed's stuff, because I mean, if you've watched like C-Lab 21, 2120 or 2021 or Frisky Dingo, the projects that he did before he became huge because of Archer. His writing style is always the same throughout all of them, and it's always just this very witty, fast talking humor, and he gets the perfect actors to play him.
I would say it's very frank and very different from what you expect from vocal acting.
Yeah,
because this is dialogue you expect from like a comedy action movie, but you just have people in animated shows, and they deliver it in ways that is also not expected. Because in voice acting, one of the things that we should bring up in voice acting and in live acting, there are definite preset expectations with both the audience and the actors on what those different things are. When you go to live acting, you always think, well, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. With live acting, there was always especially in the early days when sound was still new, there was the overacting, the really showing yourself through your motions.
Right.
And that's still kind of present because as long as you're on the scene, you should at least. It's the old adage that just because you are not. It's the old adage of the stage business. Just because you're not talking right now doesn't mean you should stop acting.
Yeah.
And of course, with voice acting, comes the same thing in the voice. You should really sell what your character is doing through the voice, and that's very different from stuff like Frisky Dingo, Archer, and C-Lab 2021, where they're just kind of talking. Yeah. And in many of the scenes, they're literally just talking.
I have to say, I think there's also this might just be because, like I said, I'm originally a voice actor, and voice acting is my love. I think it is tougher to be a voice actor.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm not dissing physical acting at all. I know it's so hard. I've tried it a few times. I'm not very good at it, to be honest. I know it's wicked tough. But when you're doing the physical acting thing, you're not really having to worry too much about any one particular aspect of you're stepping into that character. You're trying to make sure that everything you do is within the context of that character.
Yeah.
But you're still just doing stuff. You're still just walking and talking and strutting and chewing scenery and doing whatever you need to. With voice acting, you have to walk that fine line because the only thing that's going through is your voice. And so you have to know when to punch it, when not to punch it, how much punch to give it. You have to know everything that your voice is doing in intricate detail and make sure you're doing it right. We were just talking about how terrible it is when you overdo it and how you got the
Put on the voice.
Yeah, putting on the voice and the yuck radio DJs and stuff like that. And then we come back and we say, but you have to give it so much when you're a voice actor. There's a really, really fine line to walk there.
It's such a fine line that a lot of people don't even know what the line is.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, there are plenty of people.
And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and be controversial. Most of the people that don't know what it is are anime voice actors.
I was just about to say everyone who works at Funimation.
I wouldn't say that much, but
I'm not going to say that's being harsh. But
yeah,
a lot of the properties of theirs that I've been watching lately, there are two particular women voice actors that they have there who play like.
Yeah, you don't have to say anymore. I know exactly who you're talking about.
It's god awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
there's a few different reasons for that. I'm going to go ahead and defend Funimation real quick here. But
Funimation has done a lot of amazing stuff voice-wise.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm defending them on the merits that you're attacking here. In the first place, voice acting is a lot more of a scarce field than live acting is.
Yeah.
There's so much into it, and there's so much care that you have to get, and there's really not a whole lot of money in it. Yeah. Nobody really gives much of shit about a voice actor. I mean, we talk about Phil Lamar and Toby Huss and all this stuff, and they're heroes to us, but to the normal person on the street, do they really give a flying fuck who the fuck Toby Huss is? Do they
it's like we were talking
name?
about Archer. Archer is a huge thing right now. Do you really think that 9 out of 10 people would even know who H. John Benjamin is?
Well, yeah. Well,
would you think 9 out of 10 people would recognize him if they saw him?
Yeah.
Well, I would say a lot more people would recognize H. John Benjamin simply because he has a show on Comedy Central called John Benjamin Has a Van.
True. But still, so there's not a lot of prestige in it, so it's hard to really bring in the high quality talent there. And it's hard for that talent to find a niche. That's number one. Number two is when you deal with something like importing something, first off, you're always going to have translation errors creep in. But the big thing is you're just borrowing the use of someone else's product. And so they get the final say. You may write up a translation that's perfect. It's funny, it's witty, it's easy to say, it'll look great on the screen, and some Japanese dude walks in, looks at it, and says, no, this does not capture the feel of the character at all, you know. You don't have that final control over your product.
That's
You're
kind of
at
funny.
The whims
You went from
of
Japanese
else.
to Russian there.
But
the third and most important thing is that when you're dealing with importing, you have to match your voices to what they're doing on the screen.
Yeah.
The animation is already done. And so what you say sometimes has to come out stilted. Sometimes has to come out weird and wrong because the animation's already on the screen and you have to match your voice to their lips. And that is really fucking hard to do.
What I'll actually say, it's interesting that you bring that up. Because from what I've heard from a lot of the anime industries, that's actually no different in Japan. They do a lot of the animation before they do the voice acting.
Yeah.
So it's actually about the same. But okay, if I can go on my little rant here.
Mm-hmm.
With anime voice acting a lot lately, I think a big problem is, along with it kind of going into a downfall lately, there's been a lot of issues with because it's lost popularity since the late 90s.
Right.
A lot of the issue comes with can't hire the big talent, and the talent that you have coming in, frankly, are people that grew up as fans of anime in the past, and I will go ahead and say that sometimes anime fans aren't the best actors, even though they think they are. and I will
syndrome.
And I will not name any specific names, but girls like Christina V become big voice actors, even though they really aren't terribly talented. More talented than me, of course, but not really terribly talented enough to really be getting some of the jobs that they get. And and girls like her and like some of the newer voice actors who of course don't have very big names because, well, they're voice actors in modern anime. And it's not it'll probably have a resurgence in a few years, but as of right now, it's not a big industry, and you can't really get the names that you want. And the few that I do like, your Steve Blooms, your Kyle Hebers, your oh, and I was going to say a better example from your earlier one of H. John Benjamin. A better example of that would be who in modern day would have any idea if they saw her on the street who Tara Strong is?
Oh, yeah.
Because she has had, I think, literally almost 1,000 voice roles.
Well, she's literally like the voice actress rock star right now.
Yeah,
Right.
she does every cartoon that's out today, at least once. I don't know. I don't know if she's done regular show or Adventure Time.
She did Bravest Warriors, which is kind of like
Oh,
a
God,
Yes.
I love Bravest Warriors.
Bravest
I do.
Warriors,
It's
great,
awesome.
great show, and another example of using newer voice actors, but really having talent for it. Anyways, that was my rant, and
I feel
Good
like I
rant.
should qualify and make it clear I don't have anything against Funimation. I've actually gotten to go in and audition for them. They're very professional people. They really seem to care about what they do.
Oh, yeah, no,
And
I
they've
love
given us
Funimation.
some great stuff. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of FMA because my ex-girlfriend was like crazy into pairing Edward and Mustang,
We've
and I
all
didn't
dated
like.
someone
But
like that, probably.
it was brilliantly acted first and foremost, and
Right.
a whole bunch of people won awards for that, and it's because they put a lot of time into it. But I think the only real issue I think I'm having is because Funimation is probably the biggest in the industry, especially here in America right now. And as such, they're producing the majority of the content. So when problems do arrive, it seeps into pretty much everything they produce.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you take on that role as the leader in an industry, you open yourself up to the large majority of criticism from that.
anyways, I know what your next question is going to be, and I think we've already kind of answered it, but go ahead.
Well, I never got
I
to
don't.
talk about mine either.
Oh,
My
yeah,
favorite
go ahead.
examples.
Go ahead. What's your favorite examples of
Jeez,
those?
Zach.
God, I'm
My
trying to...
favorite example of any kind of voice acting actually is H. John Benjamin, and I'm gonna explain why. That
Answer.
man has played everything, and he's done it in two characters. And it's his most current two characters too. It's Bob and it's Archer. They are literally day and night. And more importantly, they have a voice actor whose voice is absolutely distinct the moment you hear it, so you know who you're thinking of when you hear it, and you still manage to lose yourself in the roles that he's providing. And that's just brilliant acting.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think with both of those, they both come from shows that H. John has been on before. You have Bob's Burger, which I think is made by, or at least associated with Brendan Smalls, isn't it?
It's Lauren Bouchard, yeah.
Yeah, and of
The guy
course,
who made home movies.
yeah, home movies, which a lot of people in modern days remember for because, well, that was one of the big shows when Adult Swim started,
Yeah.
and that's where a lot of people first heard Jean Benjamin and really noticed his voice because, well,
Coach McGurk.
Coach McGurk. Probably one of my favorite roles from that show too.
I think that's everybody's favorite role from that show.
Hey, well, yeah. How many jobs do the other people have nowadays?
Right?
I'm actually going to buck the trend and say that I first saw him on Dr. Katz.
Dr. Katz, I never actually watched when I was young.
Oh my god, dude! You
Any
need to see
Dr.
Dr.
Katz either.
Katz.
Yeah, I know of it, and I think I own a DVD of it, but I never really watched it when it was big.
I know it's shameful calling myself an animation fan and never having seen Dr. Katz, but I've never seen Dr. Katz. It's just
I
Don't worry, I'll fix this for them after the show, guys. I'll get this taken care of for you, my audience.
Okay, what I will say is that like when I was younger, I used to watch like the late night Cartoon Network stuff, and they would have like those really weird blocks of shows. That's like I distinctly remember they had the O Canada show.
Oh god, I remember O Canada.
And that was a bizarre show. And and around the same time they were playing Dr. Katz on there too. And I watched some of that, but that was like 2 a.m. on Sunday night.
wow.
So and then of course they started putting Toonami on, and I was instantly hooked. Anyways, go ahead, Evan. Your
Anyway,
favorite live action?
okay. My favorite example of good live acting actually stems in with my favorite movie, which is Fifth Element.
Okay.
Everything in that film is perfect.
I will go
Yeah.
ahead and say the other controversial statement. I only just saw Fifth Element like a month ago.
Ah,
I
isn't
don't
it
think
perfect?
that's controversial as much as it is sad.
That's yeah.
I
That's
know,
just depressing,
well,
man.
I used to have my list of all the movies that I need to see, and it was pretty sad to look at it. I
And
will
of course,
tell
it contains my favorite villain of all time, played amicably by Gary Oldman, one of the best character actors of our time. Just Mr. Zorg with that thick Southern accent and that greased over hair. It's smarmy. It's perfect against
Yeah.
Bruce Willis's just total brawn, and it's an amazing movie. All the acting in it is top notch. Even the annoying Chris Tucker role is absolutely
Chris-
perfect because he's literally supposed to play an annoying person.
Chris Tucker
It works.
I will actually go ahead and say Chris Tucker is probably the best part of the movie as Ruby
I
Rod.
love Ruby Rod. I don't know why
Ruby Rod.
everyone who's seen that movie hates him. He's one of my favorite aspects of that film.
Corbin, I ain't got no fire.
I have no fire, man. I have nothing.
Oh man.
Oh,
And
it's-
you know it had to have been tough too, because they did all that stuff old school. I mean, they had like
Oh
the
my God,
rubber
yes.
suits and shit. Could you imagine playing alongside? I don't remember who plays her, but the blue chick.
Oh, that's
I don't know her name, but I know who you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, could you imagine playing alongside that and putting out the performance they did in those scenes?
Are you talking
Yeah.
about a Lilu? Or no,
No, he's talking about the opera. The opera. singer.
Yeah.
that is.
The woman who guards the stones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you remember her name in the thing?
None of us do. I don't think.
Just look up Fifth Element IMDb.
Well, I'm on there right now.
We can come back to that later. We can.
Yeah. Go ahead. What you're saying?
I think
Was there anything else to that?
Okay. Well, go ahead. Well, I know what your next question is, and we
Okay.
kind of already discussed it.
My next question is: we've talked about what you feel is the best or your favorite aspects of it. So, what do you feel are the worst?
Well, we've already kind of talked about some anime voice acting where they overact a lot. There are some pretty good examples of modern day video game acting, unfortunately, that really fit along with that.
Oh, my example is actually going to be the children in Heavy Rain.
Oh god. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to harp on. I mean, they're young kids. Acting is difficult difficult at best for children, and voice acting can only be that much harder, especially when you are from a country that doesn't actually speak the language you're acting in. They probably did a great job considering the amount of experience they've had, but you can tell the moment that they speak that they're children in a sound booth.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Pretty
not
enough.
only that, you can tell that they're children in a sound booth, not in America, playing American children,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing for him. You can tell that the director so wanted them to do an American accent, but like picked the exact wrong kids to do it.
Okay, this is everything I'm gonna say in the podcast today is just gonna sound horrible. In my opinion, in my head, the worst example of voice acting, and it kills me to say this because I love Toby Huss so much. He's one of my heroes. If anyone has watched the recent footage of the Achewood animation that Chris Onset has done,
The one
it
you
kills
just showed
me.
us.
It murders me in my heart. It almost made me cry, guys. You know how much I love that series. I've talked about that series a lot on here. Even though you guys may not agree with me on that, I love Achewood so
I've never
much. I
seen
love
it.
the humor and I love all that into it. And just watching the performance, it killed me. I could not take it.
By
I
the
didn't
way,
even know it was him at first because the first time I watched it, I couldn't watch the video the whole way through. I had to close it halfway through and go have a cry.
completely off topic, the actress who played the opera singer is named Maïwen Lebesco.
Nice.
That's
Wow.
a name.
She is actually French.
How do you
Oh,
spell
so-
that? Do you spell it as crazily as you spell Llewellyn?
M-A-I with the two dots above it, W-E-N-N.
That's crazy.
Got it.
Anyways, yeah. I just thought I'd inform you since been looking it up.
Yay.
She hasn't done any other major roles, but she's a great opera singer. I will say that.
Yeah.
Anyways, you were saying about some stupid webcomic?
Hey. All right. I won't say anything more about it. I'm Zach. Let's move to you.
Well, I actually have to agree on Evan with the Heavy Rain examples. David Cage is so I don't say anything too bad about him. I don't personally like David Cage, but I will quote one of my professors who has talked to one of my professors, who I will not name, is my current TV production professor, is currently doing some studies in video gaming and video game development, and his professor has gone on book to say that if I ever saw David Cage on the street, I would not hesitate to run him over. Technically, as brilliant as he is, technically he lacks in dramatic development, and that really shows in some of his acting directing choices.
Mm-hmm.
Because Heavy Rain, not only the kids, but I think everybody but the old detective in that are not very good actors. The old detective, Shelley, I think his name is.
I think, yeah.
It's been too long. I don't remember.
But everybody else but him, because he basically plays himself. If you've ever seen the guy in real life, he basically is that character. But everybody else, especially the detective, who also is one of those guys who is really trying to do an American accent, but you can definitely tell it's French. He's really trying to get that I am an American FBI guy, and he just doesn't pull it off. Other than that,
I am from Americana.
Other than that,
Scott Shelby was the detective's name.
Shelby.
Played by Sam Douglas.
Not Shelby. And I already have talked about some of my distaste in some American voice actors. I'm not going to name them. Christina V. I'm not a big fan of.
The vendetta continues.
Dude, if I start getting death threats from Christina V, I'm going to be pissed.
The Christina vendetta continues.
Just send them to me. I'll take care of them, which means I'll burn them. where they deserve to be. So I'm just going to shut up now so I don't bury my hole any deeper.
All right, so we're on to me now?
Yeah.
Well, we come back around to you.
We'll come back around to you because you started.
Are we going to go again? Is that?
We can do this again. I can continue to bury my hole if you want me to.
Hey.
Dig the hole, man. It's dig the hole.
Bury myself with
the
this.
worst in voice acting for me, and the worst in live acting actually goes back to a scene with H. John Benjamin, sadly enough.
Really?
It's not H. John Benjamin in it personally who's bad. It's actually, it was like, I don't know how I ended up watching it because I had long stopped watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but they did an episode that was live action. I think it was supposed to be their season finale or something, or their series finale. And they literally had fans send in videos of themselves doing impressions of Carl. To play. And the dude they got looked perfect, had the voice and everything, and was the worst actor I have seen ever even manage to breathe. It was so bad.
Okay, since tonight's basically controversy night, where we say all the things that will make
all the actors we hate.
Yeah.
Can I go ahead and say another voice actor who I dislike?
We couldn't stop you if we wanted to.
And everybody's gonna hate me for this, but I can't stand him. What's his name? Dana Snyder.
Oh, really? I like him.
Why would people hate you for that?
I think he is a terrible voice actor, and he's basically H. John Benjamin without the talent.
I don't know that I would go so far as to say that, but I've never really thought people would have strong feelings one way or the other about Dana Snyder.
Yeah, I like him, but I mean,
I neither like
him for
nor
Code
dislike.
Monkeys, and I detest everything about Aqua
Code
Teen
Monkeys.
Hunger.
Code Monkeys is the only thing where I will say I liked him in.
I love Code Monkeys.
That and Aqua Teen Hunger Force are the only things that I know that he's in. That's literally the long and short of it. I like Dana Schneider, but I can't imagine anybody would hate you for saying that you don't like him.
Well, that's the thing though. Like, I'll be watching something and he pops up and I'm like, oh God, not him again. Because
It's because every time you hear his voice, you think of Master Shake.
well, yeah, and I don't like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I never really have. And I
Well,
think,
that's it. We're done here. No.
but I mean, he'll pop up in stuff that I like, and it'll always be the same voice. Like he does. He played a character recently in Adventure Time.
Yeah, he played the wizard.
Yes, and it was still the exact same voice.
Well, I think that's really all he does, honestly.
And I can't really respect an actor too much who
But-
got
Again, you have to ask yourself, is that just what Dana Snyder does? He walks in and does the voice, throws up his arms, drops the mic, and walks out? Or do these directors keep calling him up and saying, Dana Snyder, we need that voice. We need you in the
because you could
studio
argue
right
say the
now
same
to give
thing about
that
H.J.
performance.
Benjamin.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that it might be kind of the former because have you ever heard the story of how he got the job?
No.
He got the job because when people were trying to cast it, he basically called him, left a voice message. He didn't think he would get it, so he got drunk and left another voice message,
Ah.
And apparently they loved it, yeah.
and that's how he got the job.
Nice.
So he got the job by getting drunk.
I wish I could get every job that way.
Yeah, and I don't fault him for that, honestly, because if you can get a job while getting drunk, then more power to
Dude,
you.
good on you. Oh, he was also in Chowder, that's right. As Gazpacho.
He was in Chowder. He's in Squidbillies, which is another show I hate.
He was in Minority Team.
Squidbillies is a guilty pleasure of mine.
Oh, I
hate myself
love
for liking it, but I
Squidbillies.
love it.
Squidbillies is the one show that when somebody that I'm not a big fan of like walks up and gives an impression from that show, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the terrible crap just because of the fact that I'm reminded of the episode and I smile. I'm like, oh, I love that.
Well, I mean, Squidbillies is is like the one show that's like is just bad, but they've like perfected being bad to an art form. They're like
Yeah.
a show that knows how to do it properly.
The only good thing to come from that show is Commence the Jiggling.
Oh god, I'm doing it now. Fuck.
I'm sorry, my favorite thing from that show is actually what was it, Hoof Prince, the song that the devil played for Rusty.
I was like, welcome to Walmart.
Sands of time.
But yes, that if we were talking about worst examples, Dana Snyder is another voice example.
You got the double dip.
Yay! All right.
Anyways, live action.
So,
I think
That seems like a pretty natural progression, though, from there. I mean, not just who do you not like, who do you think gave an utterly terrible performance, but you loved them for it anyway? Guilty pleasure.
What's his name? Go ahead. I'm gonna look something up. Go ahead. I'm gonna look
Alex,
something
you wanna
up.
start? I'm still
Oh.
composing my thoughts.
Oh, no, I posed the question to you guys. Crap.
Tommy
A
Wiseau.
person who did utterly terrible, but you love them for it.
Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero.
I think that goes to a whole new level.
Greg Testosterone, dude. He's the best thing in that movie.
Yeah, I would have to go with Zach on that one. Everything in that movie is terrible in the most beautiful way imaginable.
I mean, in a conversation like this, the room is basically Godwin's law.
Yeah.
When you bring up Tommy Wiseau, we can't not agree with it. That's just you've taken the cake, Zach. There's nothing more to say.
We're done.
Oh, I will say that I have been recommending people a movie lately called Safety Not Guaranteed, which is a movie based on an old meme, which I'm sure Alex knows about.
Yes, unfortunately.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that movie?
Not the movie. I'm aware of the meme.
Yeah. Let's see. There are people in that movie who give very bad, like, I wouldn't say bad performances. I liked all the performances. They're not the strongest, especially one of the main guys who's with the reporters. the guy who leads them, and the nerd that they have, who's like a very stereotypical like Indian nerd, which is weird to say because a stereotypical Indian nerd is something that's pretty recent. But
Thank you, Big Bang Theory.
I would say thank you IT Tech from India, since that's basically where the cliche comes from.
I never really
Yeah.
thought of them as nerds, just as monkeys,
Well-
the code monkeys.
Whoa, whoa.
Well, you know what? I'm not as the pejorative term.
I
racially,
was
but as
about to
the-
go,
the-
holy
but as
shit,
the sign-
Evan. Where the
Right.
fuck did that come from?
No, as the pejorative term or the denotation of people who write code in an office, not as the pejorative or racial whatever.
But what I will say is they don't give the best performances, but with the role that they were doing, they do it really well, and they really sell the characters that they're trying to do. The main focus on the main girl and the time traveler, who the guy that they got, even though he looks nothing like the guy from the original ad, who has probably the best haircut ever made, which is a mullet high top.
What?
Evan, I showed you this.
You have? Okay.
Hold on, I'll go find it again. But he has a mullet high top, and they kind of go for the mullet look in the movie, but like different hair color and completely different person. But he still pulls off this kind of crazy out there guy really well. And the main girl is like, of course, the hipster chick who doesn't care about anything. Actually, she's been in a lot of stuff recently. And she was in a show that I don't watch, Aubrey Plaza, who is in, she was in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World as
She was a drummer, wasn't she?
she was Julie Powers.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's been Upright Citizens Brigade, Funny People. She's in a show right now. I can't remember what it's called. Portlandia.
Oh,
wait,
God, Portlandia. Oh.
she's in Parks and Recreation. She plays character April Ludgate. That's what I was trying to think of. And the main guy is the time traveler is a guy named Mark Duplass, who was in Jeff Who Lives at Home. He was in Zero Dark 30, Darling Companion, a bunch of different stuff. But I wouldn't say they gave a bad performance. They didn't give the greatest performance, but it fits in the role that they were trying to do. So there's my entire thing about that. And yeah,
I just want to say before we move past Portlandia, Portlandia is the one show that is just the living embodiment of Poe's Law for me. I can't watch that show because it's too real.
and by the way, I'm linking
These people exist.
I'm linking the picture now to Evan.
You have never showed me this, man.
I've never showed you that.
You told me about
dude,
it. We
you never
talked
seen
about it with
that?
Adolph, but you never showed me this picture.
I
This is amazing.
I linked it in the chat that we were talking about it with, dude.
This man needs to be president.
He's,
Just because of that haircut.
yeah, but
Anyway,
anyway,
that man wasn't president. Have you ever seen a picture?
He went back in time.
Yeah.
he is actually Barack Obama.
Ah. All right. So okay. So the question was our favorite example of somebody who was doing bad acting, but you love them for it.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually have two for this. One of them is from a person who I personally actually don't believe is a bad actor, is just a limited actor.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it just basically anything he's in, but the particular scene is the one where he's in Total Recall, where he's on the actual surface of Mars screaming just constantly. Because that is the best scene. That is the best minute clip that has ever been filmed in the history of filmmaking, period.
Oh,
you
dude.
show that to anyone, it will make their day.
Even better than that, you need to go, if you haven't seen it, go and look up the final scene from Commando,
The final scene. Okay, I'll check that out.
where he is just shooting people and screaming for 5 minutes.
It's incredible.
And
I didn't see that. That's awesome.
he is just killing people randomly. He's being shot at, but not being shot. He kills nearly as many people as Rambo has killed without his shirt on. Which, by the way, if you go look online, there is a chart. Like there's a site that's basically graphed like Rambo's death count, and they like separate it by if he has a shirt on, does have a shirt on, what weapons he's used to kill people.
Do they make a distinguishment between when his shirt is on but ripped so much it's barely there?
I think they count that as shirt off.
Okay.
Because it stopped functioning as a shirt.
Right. It no longer is a functional shirt.
And I was watching some LPers who were talking about it, and they said like eventually we're going to reach the Rambo singularity, where he simultaneously kills every person on the planet Earth and has to kill himself. And obviously,
my other example would be any young woman in a Japanese live action drama.
Oh my god! Oh,
because I love Japan. It's one of the countries that I'm a huge fan of culturally because of anime and just their mythology and their pop culture is hilarious. First and foremost, and I admit I suffer a bit from yellow fever. But there seems to be two settings for basic Japanese acting, which is normal acting and overacting. And there's no kind of discrepancy between the two. You either do one or you do the other. And that seems to be a pretty common thing in their live action dramas is this overacting, unrealistic reactions to everything that occurs.
Which is weird. Which is weird when you consider that. Because I know what he's talking about. I've seen only a few, but I don't need to see any more after that. But it's almost specifically in Japanese drama acting.
Yeah.
Because you get to like Japanese like thriller movies and Japanese comedies.
And it's all normal.
Yeah. We just recently watched Battle Royale. And it's basically a regular action thriller. Yeah. Like it could have been made by Americans and it would almost be the exact same.
And everyone in the dramas does it, but I forgive the women because they're cute Japanese women. They open those big eyes, and I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever.
Okay, so now Evan's digging the hole of being a terrible nerd. So Alex, what hole are you digging?
Oh God, I honestly don't think I have anything more to add to this discussion. I don't think I can take this any further. I'm pretty sure we've plowed about every ground there is to plow. I'm going to bow out of this one.
I'm just amazed that nobody has talked about Uwe Boll during this entire podcast.
Well,
the less said about Uwe Boll, the better.
Well, he doesn't do terrible
Good strategy.
He doesn't do terrible acting. He just does terrible directing.
Well, he brings out terrible acting and surprisingly good actors, actually.
Yeah. And if you want to go with actors who are bad but people still enjoy them, other people, not me, you can go with Mr. Funky Bunch himself, Marky Mark.
Oh my God, Mark Wahlberg!
Don't talk shit about Mark Wahlberg.
Fucking Mr. Marky Mark
Zach.
and the Funky Bunch.
You.
I don't like Mark Wahlberg. I think he's done like 3 good roles in the 10,000 he's done, but
I love Mark Wahlberg. I think he's like everybody's kid brother.
You know what, Zach? I just don't think you're feeling the good vibrations.
Good vibration. Okay, but what I will say is I am excited for his latest role. And it's such a weird, like, it's almost the bad singularity that creates something good. Because you have a Michael Bay movie starring Mark Wahlberg, but it looks good. And that's...
I will say, Michael Bay has put out... For what he does, he puts out good movies, and I personally think The Rock is actually a good movie, even on its own merits, just in general.
But dude, just off topic, but the funniest thing about Michael Bay's thing is when you go down to like Wikipedia pages for the directors, they have like this movie and it made this much in the box office. You know what Michael Bay has? It's a list of movies. Instead of like box office or like critical rating, they have Rotten Tomato ratings for every one of those movies. But
You know what? Okay. I take back my earlier statement. I do have something to add to this conversation.
All
I'm
right.
going to add the thing that everyone always says because it needs to be said. Nicolas Cage.
Ah,
I love Nicolas Cage.
Yep.
I like acting.
When I
guys.
said The Rock, I realized, you know what? We haven't said anything about Nicolas Cage yet. People would lynch us if we didn't bring him up.
Oh, Nicolas Cage is one of the greatest
Bring
actors.
down the cage.
Yep.
What I will say, for anybody who's interested in the movie that's coming out, it's coming out on April 26th called Pain and Gain. It's basically about steroid abuse. And it's starring Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I love Dwayne
The
Johnson. I was amazed at how good of an actor he is.
People
Yeah,
don't,
I know.
people don't know that wrestlers can actually become really good actors if you give them a chance. Not all of them, but they are basically physical actors.
It's kind of funny. It comes right back full circle to the whole method acting thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because a lot of wrestlers have to be method actors. It's in their contracts. You hear stories about wrestlers who have shit happen to them and they have to stay in character.
I will talk about this on another podcast, because I am a wrestling fan. And I can go in depth about that. But anyways, I love Nicolas Cage. I don't like Mark Wahlberg, but I am excited for the new movie, despite being a Michael Bay movie starring Mark Wahlberg.
Huh.
And that's what I have to say.
Anyway,
Final
we were
thoughts,
talking about the
guys.
cage.
The Cage.
Fine. We'll talk about Nicolas Cage. Okay. Here's my spiel on Nicolas Cage. All right. I don't have anything against him. I don't think he's a bad actor in any way, but I think he has pigeonholed himself into this situation where the types of roles that he gets and the types of characters that he play contribute to his public perception as a terrible actor. I think he has chops. I think he can pull off a wide variety of roles. I just don't think he gets those roles. He keeps getting shit where he puts on a bear suit and punches women in a forest.
My theory on Nicolas Cage, and I have told this to a few different people. My theory is something in his head is circuited backwards. So what ends up happening is when he's given a very serious, very major role, he plays it in a very boring way. Like when he did Sorcerer's Apprentice, and he did a really, really boring way of doing that character. But when he's given like a very small role in a very like indie style movie, he overdoes it to the point of being entertaining as fuck.
He strides on set with a big grin on his face and a throbbing erection that says, "I'm Nicolas fucking Cage and I'm here to act."
And I don't know if he does that on purpose or not.
I hope he does because it sounds hilarious.
But yeah, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but in like the multi-million-dollar movies, he's always boring. He always talks in the same monotone accent. Well, his weird Nicolas Cage accent, which I can never really place.
His weird Nicolas Cage accent.
Yeah, it's very unique to Nicolas Cage.
I like acting, guys. I like movies.
In the multi-million-dollar movies, he'll be very boring, but in the smaller movies that have a smaller budget, like the remake of Wicker Man, what's that? Master and Commander, I think it is.
On the far side of the world or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, where he's just insane. He's one of the most insanely amazing actors I've ever seen, and I would never want him to change, even if
my favorite movie with him is actually one where he gets to do both. Face Off.
Oh, yeah.
Balls
Nice.
out crazy, like throughout the entire first part of that movie. Then as soon as they swap faces, he's like, "Oh, I'm so tortured and it's so dark and I need to get home and save my wife." Yeah, and that movie sold me on him as an actor.
Yeah.
I will never say Nicolas Cage is a bad actor. I will just say Nicolas Cage is a Nicolas Cage actor.
and that's almost its own genre now. The Nicolas Cage actor who have such well-known people as Christopher Walken, who's a very Nicolas Cage actor, who does these weird roles and weird ways of doing them. And he's another guy who's kind of odd in his way of portraying characters. Because, yeah. So, I can't really say too much on Christopher Walken because there really isn't much to say on Christopher Walken. You almost explain who he is by saying his name.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, and it's so hard to explain, too. It's one of those situations where it's like, okay, listen, Let me get my laptop. I'll bring up a clip on YouTube. This is Christopher Walken, and then you play it.
Yep. So yeah, we've kind of already gone over some of our favorite actors. I will go ahead and say probably my favorite actor of all time. It will always be Gene Wilder.
Okay.
And I'm very disappointed that he decided to stop. I understand why. After he went through his cancer bout, his love for the business had kind of left him, and he just decided to retire while he was still healthy, and that's very respectable. It's unfortunate that he left so early. Like I think he left acting on a semi-permanent basis in like the mid '90s.
Yeah, 1999 was basically when his last big thing went.
Yeah, and that was like appearance on Will and Grace, I think it was.
Something like that. Oh, no,
Yeah.
Will and Grace was in 2002.
Yeah,
that was just a guest role, so it's kind of a footnote, but I guess you could.
Yeah, like I was saying, like he kind of stopped doing major acting like mid '90s. Like he kind of semi-retired, but by like early 2000s he was basically done.
Yeah.
And I've seen recent interviews with him, and the one thing I've always respected about Gene Wilder, and it kind of connects it all together, is his voice. Gene Wilder has an amazing speaking voice, an amazing singing voice, because he was trained in theater. And one thing you always notice about people who are trained in theater is that they usually have a pretty amazing voice.
Yeah.
And another actor who is probably my favorite, Stephen Fry, who I will always consider the narrator of reality. A lot of people like to give that to Morgan Freeman, but I say it's Stephen Fry.
It's just American and UK version.
Yeah.
Alex, how about you?
I honestly forgot what the question was. I still have the lyrics to Good Vibrations stuck in my head.
Favorite actor.
Who's your favorite
Let's go
actor?
with Mark Wahlberg. Let's put Marky Mark out here.
All right.
I am not a member of the Funky Bunch. Stop bringing him up.
Evan?
As for myself, Gary Oldman. Just everything he's done is brilliant.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman, yes, he's and people talk about Johnny Depp being a great character actor. No, Gary Oldman's like 10 times a better character actor than he is. Like, I like Johnny Depp, but they bring him that word a lot. Character actor means you're good at portraying a good character and kind of leaving your actor self behind. I never found that with
Johnny Depp is good at being quirky.
Johnny Depp is
Johnny
good
Depp
at
is good at being Johnny Depp.
yeah.
And that's exactly what Zach was going to say, but I stole it from him.
Screw you.
All right, guys. So we're gonna wrap up here.
Wait, no. I wanna do one last thing.
He wants to talk shit about Johnny Depp some more.
Fuck Johnny Depp. Anyways. No, I love Johnny Depp. There's one last question here because we're going to break the fourth wall, and I'm going to pull up the questions that he made.
Oh, no.
Ruined
Wait.
illusion.
He made I didn't get those. Damn.
I linked them in the Skype chat.
That assumes that I'm going to do stuff, though.
Anyways, I think it's very important that we do address experience in the field.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that.
To show people that we're not just full of shit. That we do have some experience.
Professionals.
In high school, I was trained theater actor. I've done several stage plays. I'm usually not a big role because, well, I've been fat since high school. I've been in a production of Macbeth. I've done kid shows. Voice acting wise, me and Evan usually do voice acting together. Like, we usually are in the same place whenever we're voice acting. I've done a few for a local director. Will not name him for personal reasons, but we contacted him a long time ago, like back when I was a sophomore, like 7 years ago.
Forever
Sophomore in
ago.
high school?
Back when I was in high school, yeah.
Wow.
Got in contact with him. He's at times a small-time director, but he's gotten bigger now. And we just did a few extra roles for him. We helped him out in a 40-hour film festival down in Austin. And that's kind of where I found that I really do love voice acting, is because I just like being in the recording studio. And actually, it sounds like a really vain reason for it, but one of the big reasons I like voice acting is I like being in the studio. I like the feel of being in the studio. And I did a few things for him. I've tried out, me and Evan both tried out at Funimation. So that was a very good time. Neither of us got the role that we wanted, but oh well. And
That's why you guys keep talking shit about
no, we love Funimation.
Who told you?
We think they're great guys. But yeah, and currently I'm studying in filmmaking, so I've been in a few films. I've made a few films. So yeah, there's my experience.
My experience is, I mean, I've dabbled in a little bit of everything. I did one act play. I did improv stuff in high school. I did drama.
Yeah, I will say that both me and Evan have been involved in the UIL one act play.
Yeah. I did that stuff in high school. After high school, couple of parts. Nothing outside of a school setting, an educational setting, for the most part, except for radio. Which, I mean, I've done professional radio for AM stations, for FM stations, for stuff like that. But most of my acting experience has been recent, actually going to the University of North Texas and being in their program and being in a couple of small productions here or there, mostly for television. But in terms of like actual voice acting, like ADB, audio dubbing and stuff like that, I don't really have the greatest experience in that. Most of my experience is in other vocal type roles, like radio and recording for other purposes. And I did record a few voices for an old radio drama called the Adventures of Dylan Darby, or the Misadventures of Dylan Darby, or something like that. It was a small thing by some dude down in Dallas. I don't think it ever really caught on, but it was a lot of fun.
Okay. Evan?
Well, I've been off and on in acting ever since I was a kid. I did, like those little school plays that they do in, when you're like in fifth grade and stuff.
Yeah.
I did that. That was fun. Once I was in seventh grade, I actually started like getting into acting. I went out for like, the theater course and everything and discovered I loved it. So I did that for a while. It was very fun. Once I got into high school, I actually started going in plays. I did UIL one act plays. I actually got to do we did a UIL main stage play. And I actually won 2 different awards for my portrayal of Selsdon Mowbray. I won a Patty Granville, and I won an actual one of the trophies from the UIL regionals, I think, that we had like in Austin or something, which is really cool. Outside of that, Zach and I both did voice work for a director, I believe a local director, a director who was local to Dallas for a while. We also did some live action for him at the 48-Hour Film Festival. We've done projects of our own, working with voice acting and live action and things of that nature. We've done another 48-Hour Film Festival. That was, considering we were the only 2 working on it, I actually think we did pretty well on. It turned out awful. And other than that, I'm apparently floating around in a music video for Twyla Paris somewhere with a bunch of other kids from my church choir when I was like 6. That's hardly acting. It was fun though. That's actually when I got asked for my first autograph by some random woman in the audience, because apparently I did really good. So I mean, I've done a little bit of everything. I love it all. Me and Zach do projects, and I'm trying out at local theaters occasionally. Yeah.
So I just wanted to cover that real quick, just in case.
I'm also damn good at it.
Yeah. Me too. I'm damn good at being a person that I am not.
I'm damn good at being handsome.
Yep, and I think that's about all we have.
All right. So it was a lot of fun chatting with everybody out there in internet land, and bad mouthing just about everybody we feel like we should bad mouth.
Oh yeah. The subtitle for this episode should be talking shit.
I think
exactly.
I think this has been our longest podcast to date.
Right. All right. So
we had a lot of shit to diss,
Yeah. I'm Zach, and my hole is about 10 feet deep. Alex.
I'm Alex, and my hole is not nearly as deep.
And I'm Evan, and I don't care.
See you guys.
See you guys later.